how many people you work with actually have a Bible? Actually have any idea what the Bible says? There was a new pastor who came to a church, and he was walking around, and this young boy came by, and the little boy's name was Johnny. He said, "Johnny, how are you?" And he introduced himself. He said, "Johnny, let me ask you a question. Who knocked down the walls of Jericho?" And Johnny said, "It wasn't me." And he thought that was kind of cute, so he went to Johnny's parents later that afternoon, and he said, "Oh, I met your son earlier today, and he's really cute. I asked him who knocked down the walls of Jericho, and he said, 'Not me.'" And his dad goes, "Well, if he said he didn't do it, he didn't do it." Some people have no idea. We have a friend who his career was based on church humor, and he said, "Guess what? My act doesn't work in like 90% of the venues that I go to because people don't know church humor anymore. They don't know that Moses didn't write this book or that Sarah wasn't this person. People have no idea what's in the Bible. All they have, their only impression of the Bible and Christians is what they see on TV. And that is really sad. So there's this peace. There's this environment of, okay, I'm going to do whatever I'm told to do. And we have this we have this whole thing. There is a potential Antichrist alive today. You know why? Because Satan has no idea when Jesus is going to start popping those seals. He's had to have an Antichrist in the wings since Jesus went to the cross. There has been, so if you're one of those people who, for years I heard that this person was the Antichrist, you may very well be right. He was in waiting. He was ready to step up and take that role. And I know some of y'all are thinking, it was my third grade teacher. No, probably not. But there's always been an Antichrist, because guess what? Satan doesn't know the timeline that the Father knows. And he's got to be prepared to get all this stuff rolling. He's still under the impression that he's got a chance to pull it out. He doesn't. The victory is already decided. Okay. If you are a mid or post-tribber, we very well have already seen the breaking of the first seal, because we sure have seen a lot of, hey, if you'll give up this, you can have this. And there's a lot of weird stuff going on in the world. Okay, let's go on. The red horse. Verse 3, when he broke the second seal, I heard the second living creature saying, "Come." Now here's why I thought the first one was the lion, because from now on it tells us the second creature, and I'm just going back to the last chapter. The second creature was the ox. What does the ox represent? Ox represents the domesticated, the servant, the animals, the service animals that we use. What was Jesus? Jesus was the servant to many. So does this have anything to do with that? Probably, I don't know. But I do know that this creature says, "Come," and the seal is broken. He says, "Come," and a red horse, went out. And on him who sat on it, it was granted to take peace from the earth, and that men would slay one another. And a great sword was given to him. So finally, this guy's got a sword. He's on a red horse. Red means war. It means blood. It's very much or judgment and that kind of thing. This is pretty easy to see war. The first guy brings peace, I think, for the first part of the tribulation, 3.5 years. This guy is going to bring war, and it's literally going to be brother against brother. I did a little bit of research. Brother against brother, nation against nation. During the Civil War, or Northern Aggression as we like to call it, there were 140,000 Union deaths. There were 75,000 Confederate deaths, so over 200,000 deaths in a war between members of the same family, the same country. That isn't nation against nation. That's nation divided against nation. Again, what does the enemy love to do? He loves to divide. If he can keep us distracted over what color we paint the bathroom, he's thinking, yes. Now if I can get him to argue over which worship song, yes. He loves to keep us distracted with arguing and being divided. This week, while I was preparing for this, and this is unofficial, but 95% of all of the wars and conflicts that are going on around our globe, 95% of them, there are some amount of Muslim involvement in those wars. Now, Mike, why do you say that? Because there are a lot of people who believe that the Muslim faith is going to be a major player in end-time prophecy. I'm not smart enough to know that one way or the other, but I do think it's interesting when you have 95% of all the wars that are going on in the world, and it's by one group of radical people, that should at least take note. I know Amy has been to Egypt and has gotten to minister to Muslim people. And I'm not saying all Muslims. I'm just saying we know that there is a radical section there, and they don't like us. They don't like anybody but themselves. I'm not sure they really like themselves a whole lot. So it's just interesting to know that. Let me see this. Oh, okay. War is an inevitability. Sometimes it seems like, and I know there are a lot of people who struggle with. There's a lot of war in the Bible, and there's war going on now. Why doesn't God stop all the war? Now, I know there are some people who go, well, it's the first day in heaven. I'm going to walk up. I'm going to sit in front of God. I'm going to point my finger in God's face, and I'm going to say, God, I want to ask you a couple questions. I don't really think that's going to happen. If it does, you let me know how that turned out. But here's the thing I know. You should YouTube this message from Ravi Zachariah. And basically, he answers this question. He answers the question with a question. When should God stop stopping things? Well, God should stop this. Well, okay, do you want him to also stop this? Oh, no, that's okay. We want him to stop this. So what you'd like to do is you'd like to have a one-man committee to tell God what to stop and what not to stop. So it's all going to be based on what you think is right and what you think is wrong. That's a mistake. Anybody here want to let me decide what you do or don't do all week long? Anybody want to volunteer for that? Emma goes, I live that. No. And I'll be quite honest, as much as I love you and trust you, there's nobody here that I really want to say, hey, here's my calendar, here's my checkbook, arrange my life for me. You tell me what I can and can't do. Here's the thing that we don't get about God. God is a God of extremes. He is extremely holy, like holy off the scale. And he's extremely gracious. Gracious like off the scale. Well, no, he can't be. Yes, he can be because he's God. And he is a God of extremes. There's not, well, I'm okay with that, but I'm not okay with. But he has literally had to take himself and he's like, I'm not constraining. I'm not stopping. Because if I started stopping, I couldn't stop stopping. Because if I'm going to apply holiness to this, folks, you're not going to like what you get. If I'm going to just apply love to this, you're not going to. He does everything in a balance, but it's cool because his balance is extreme. Now, what happens if you put extreme weight on both sides of a scale? It breaks the scale. God breaks the scale, y'all. God breaks the measurement. God breaks the machine that figures out stuff. He's that big. He's that heavy. He's that enormous. And I'm so glad that one of his extremes is love. The amazing, amazing thing about God's love is that he is extremely holy. And yet he still loves me. Because how much love does he need to deal with me when I know how holy I am in my own self? I'm glad he's an extreme God. Okay, I need to hurry up here. I'm only halfway through the horses. All right. Ravi Zachariah, you'll really enjoy him. The rider is the red horse. Now, here's the question. Is it still the Antichrist? Probably. If it's not, it's I think it'll take the same place. We're going to figure this out as we go together. But the perception of peace is going to be replaced with the dread of war. It will even be more deadly than anything we have seen this far. All right, that's horse number 2. Horse number 3, verse 5. When he broke the third seal, I heard the third living creature say, "Come." I looked, and behold, a black horse, and he who sat on it had a pair of scales in his hand. Now, there's the black horse. The pair of scales in his hand. And who is the third creature? The third creature is the one that looks like man, okay? It represents the humanity of Christ, and now he calls come, and I think he's calling the horseman forward, and the horseman comes up, and this horseman, he's riding a black horse, and he's carrying these seals, the scales with him. We just talked about the scales. What do the scales represent? Well, the scales represent the market. In this particular thing, it represents the market, because what do we see he brings? He brings famine. And so famine and the scales of the market all has to do with what we eat. How many of y'all are going to have to stop by a Kroger on the way home today just to get something? We all, that's just kind of a thing. If the Kroger in White House had been open about a year, and we got a stack of coupons from them. It was like the 12 days of Christmas. That first Christmas they were open, and like the first day was you got a free turkey, and the next day you got this, and we just thought, man, they're really going over the top to give this to their customers. And Sally actually asked the lady, the cashier, one day, she goes, "This is cool that you're sending out these coupons to everybody." She goes, "You got those coupons?" She goes, "Yeah." She goes, that goes to like the top 10% of our customers. Like, we're the top 5%. Like, honey, we're spending way too much money at the grocery store if we make the top list of anything. But this scale is all about the marketplace. The significance of the third creature, I'm not exactly sure, but we know that Jesus, humanity, mankind, peace by force has been now turned to war, and now war is going to be it's going to be added to by some type of famine. White is peace, red is blood from war. Now black represents judgment, justice, and the marketplace, the food. It's easy to see how war leads to famine. War almost always leads to famine because crops are destroyed. Marketplaces are destroyed. Supply lines are destroyed. And what can cause a famine? Well, easily shortage of food. But how can food be shortaged? Well, somebody set a field on fire because we just beat you, and now we're going to just burn your crops. Well, yeah, but you also just burned your crops, big boy. That's really smart thinking. Or drought, or some type of pestilence, or any number of things. Okay, now here we'll get into this, and some of y'all have listened to other people teach, and this is a big thing with them, is bees. What do bees do? They pollinate stuff. We get rid of all the bees, what happens to all of our plants? A lot of them stop working without some other thing coming in. Again, remember, I'm not gloom and doom. I'm not that. But it's interesting. Okay, it could be a shortage of water, or contamination of water, or it could be pestilence. But it literally could just be all the bees are gone, and stuff doesn't get pollinated. So let's go back and look at this. Verse 6. And I heard something like a voice in the center of the four living creatures saying, "A quart of wheat for a denarius, and 3 quarts of barley for a denarius, and do not damage the oil and the wine." Now, who is this voice? Well, a voice in the center of the four living creatures. There's the throne, there's God the Creator, and there's Jesus the Redeemer. So it's a voice coming from that, so it's God. Whether it's the Creator or the Redeemer, it doesn't really matter. What does it mean? A day's wage will only buy a day's food. The Roman soldier got a denarius a day. They also got this much wheat. They got that was an allotment. Now, how many of y'all would like to know that what you made today is going to pay for your loaf of bread? but that's it. Now, does that sound